Mira said, I can do it. Why don't you give me a chance? Daniel, her class tutor, sipped his coffee and gestured for her to go, pointing towards his watch, indirectly signaling that it was time for class. Mira squeezed her hands behind her back, but still she tried to communicate. However, he seemed more interested in his coffee than in what she had to say. She called his attention, saying, Sir, if I don't get a chance, how should I prove that I am capable? For a brief moment, Daniel stared at her and then again gestured for her to go. She turned back, tears filling her eyes. Suddenly, an alarm rang, pulling her back from the scene to her house. Mira tried to open her eyes, realizing it was her subconscious playing tricks on her, rewinding the scene from a week ago. She sighed and thought, why is life not fair and good to me? I was very happy in my previous school, but the medical emergency of my grandmother made me enter this roller coaster ride of life. She glanced at the photo on her table, where she and her grandmother smiled, capturing a moment of happiness. For a brief moment, she traveled back a year to Christmas holidays when she had visited her grandmother with her parents. They had gone on a picnic, and Mira's clever pranks had made her grandmother wear a hat, bringing joy to the day. She smiled at the memory. However, 3 months after the picnic, her grandmother fell ill. Even at 80, her grandmother's optimistic attitude remained fresh. She managed to stay healthy, but life took a cruel turn, making her fall in the living room. Mira questioned in her mind, why? Why does life seem to play with me, moving me from my previous school to this new one? Nothing here interests me. The only good thing that happened to me so far is my friendship with Ruby. Ruby, a talkative girl, was like her bodyguard, according to Alina in class. Mira closed her eyes tightly and remembered her first day at the new school. She had entered the classroom to find everyone in groups, and her heart had sunk at the thought of not making new friends. She stood there like a statue. When Daniel, her tutor, entered and introduced her to the whole class, asking her to introduce herself, she, for some unknown reason, couldn't find the words. After a few awkward minutes, the students laughed and the teacher asked her to return to her seat. The only positive from the day was her deskmate, Ruby, who had now become her best friend. However, her inability to speak on the first day had ruined her chances of participating in the speech competition. To make matters worse, Daniel was in charge of student selection, and Alina, the previous year's winner, as well as principal's daughter, enjoyed mocking Mira. On that fateful first day, some bullies, led by Alina, gave her the nickname Miss Silence and imitated her silence, leaving Mira embarrassed. Mira remembered Daniel entering the classroom last week with interesting news. The inter school speech competition was going to be held in 3 weeks, and he was in charge of the selection. Mira's face, initially lit with happiness, began to fade upon learning that he was in charge. For some unknown reason, she felt she wouldn't be selected. While wrestling with her thoughts, Ruby, who was aware of Mira's interest in speech competitions, shouted her name, drawing the class's attention on her as well as bringing Mira back to her senses. As Mira saw Daniel writing something on a piece of paper, her brain considered the possibility that he might be asking students interested in speech competition. Students started murmuring, and Daniel glanced at her, gesturing negatively. Mira's face drained of color. Alina, seated in front, turned and mocked her, gesturing her nickname, Miss Silence. Mira glanced at Ruby, who was already finding reasons to justify her actions. Ruby suggested, we can talk to him in the staff room. He's friendly. He might give you a chance. Mira smiled and couldn't say much. For some reason, she felt Ruby's words had a point. She went to staff room during one of her breaks and found Daniel. She talked to him, explaining everything. After listening, he said, my class cannot afford to lose the speech competition. It wouldn't be good for school's reputation. Alina proved her skill last year. She is a tough match. Mira interrupted. Why don't you give me a chance? Hear my speech, and then you can decide. Daniel smiled and said, I already gave you a chance on the first day of school, but you were silent.
so I cannot make an exception now.
and advised her to get accustomed to the new school. Daniel continued.
Perhaps by next year, the school environment and the friendly approach of teachers will equip you with the skills to participate in the speech competition.
She didn't know what to say. She smiled, thinking about the school environment and friendly approach of the teachers, who were not actually ready to listen to their fellow student. Is this what a friendly approach means? I'd be grateful if I don't lose my sanity here by being in the school, cried Mira's mind. But for some reason, her mind's script was not getting much attention from Mira, as if she's not allowing the dialogues to get out of her mouth. After a while, her mind stopped the scene with a sigh. She told, Sir, if I don't get a chance, how should I prove that I'm capable? Mira snapped back to her room from her memory bank as the ticking clock brought her back to reality. Mira knew there were only 2 more days before the list of candidates for the speech competition would be announced by the school. She sighed, feeling like nothing was working in her favor ever since her grandmother broke her leg. Her mother's voice reached her ears, asking Mira to get ready for school. Dismissing all thoughts, Mira prepared herself. After getting ready, she glanced at the mirror and noticed her reflection, where her true self seemed to be fading away. She felt as though Miss Silence was taking control of her. She forced a smile on her face and rushed downstairs. Upon seeing her grandmother in a wheelchair, she went over and kissed her cheeks. Her grandmother always loved her and often engaged Mira in captivating stories. Among many stories, Mira's favorite was the one about a young boy who received a golden ticket to visit his dream place. While eating, Mira couldn't help but think about the boy in her grandmother's story who had an intense desire to visit Egypt. She pondered how a kind hearted rich man and a series of unexpected events helped the boy realize his dream. Mira mechanically consumed her food, but her mind was envious of the boy who, at her age, had received a golden ticket. She felt an urge to enter the storybook and immerse herself in its pages. Mira always wished that the character winning the golden ticket could be her. Her grandmother smiled and gestured towards a quote on the wall, as if reading the confusion in her granddaughter's heart. And the quote said, Life is a great big canvas, and you should throw all the paint on it you can. Mira, after reading the quote, felt something signaling her brilliant mind. It rushed with sentences challenging her grandmother's message, asking, What if someone is not ready to give me the canvas? What should I do with the colors? However, Mira did not allow once again her mind script a chance to perform good. She finished her meal and nodded at her grandmother with a smile and then rushed off to school. Daniel was busy looking for his notes. Morning at 8 o'clock was not a time to rush. It was a new rule he couldn't amend. This rule remained unchanged because of his 6-year-old daughter and her mischievous tricks. For some reason, he always felt like a king father when he was around this little princess. Her little questions often carried the weight of profound thoughts, causing him to reflect on everything he had learned and doubt its validity. He believed that when Sarah entered questioning mode, it was akin to facing bullets from an AK 47. Daniel adjusted his overcoat, gathered his necessary files and books, and made his way downstairs. Sarah was already jumping on the floor, clearly trying to grab his attention. Seeing him, she became visibly delighted, evident in her sparkling eyes. However, there was also a hint of worry on her face. Daniel knew that this little princess was about to file a complaint against her queen mother who had stopped her from embarking on any important mission. Daniel smiled and asked,
What happened to my sweetheart? Tell daddy.
Daddy, Mommy didn't allow me to enter the dark room. Daniel recalled a recent incident when Sarah had ventured into the bedroom upstairs where the electrician's work had not yet completed. She got frightened and developed a slight fever, after which the once innocent room became the dark room in Sarah's memory. Daniel was brought back to his senses as he felt the small palm of his daughter touching his cheek. He smiled and asked,
Then what, baby?
Sarah's face lit up with immense happiness and she continued her complaint. Mommy never gives me a chance. Why doesn't she give me a chance? One day then I can learn how to be brave like you. She stopped her complaint with an innocent facial expression. Upon hearing all this, Grace, his wife, entered the room with a warm smile. She caught Sarah and tickled her belly, saying, "Sweetheart, you're brave. Mama always allows you to do everything. But what if you develop a fever again?" Sarah spoke with confidence, evident in her small face. "What if I don't?" Grace smiled and responded, "What if?" Sarah rushed over to Daniel, her facial expressions changing rapidly. Daniel torn between Sarah's dialogue and his recollection of Mira's question. "Why don't you give me a chance?" Constantly shifting his attention. Once again, Sarah attempted to seize his focus by jumping, prompting him to glance at her and pick her up. He had the distinct feeling that another set of bullets from AK 47 was coming from Sarah. Seeing him, Sarah touched his face and asked, "Why doesn't Mama give me a chance?" Her sparkling eyes locked onto his. Finally, she posed a question. "Who is a teacher?" For some reason, this question hit him right in the chest. Although he was unaware of the connection between Sarah's question and the thoughts running through his mind regarding Meera. Grace, his wife, smiled and replied, "A teacher is like a light that dissolves the darkness in mind of a child and illuminates it with knowledge, making it the best so that it inspires many along the way." Daniel felt another jolt. He pondered.
Did I truly illuminate Mira's mind, or did I do the opposite by casting it into darkness? Am I a good teacher? Why didn't I listen to her? She is new in the school. I should have made her feel comfortable here. Instead, what did I do?
These thoughts pricked his heart. He began to understand the reason behind Mira's smile when he attempted to lecture her about the friendly approach of teachers in the school. He contemplated the consequences.
What if principal becomes furious and causes me more trouble, especially considering Alina is his daughter? Even after facing all these problems, what if Mira doesn't perform well? Can I manage the consequences?
With all these thoughts in his mind, Daniel started his journey to school, feeling that the road ahead seemed unusually unfavorable today. On seeing the traffic, he sighed. A man was approaching him with some colored papers. He became curious. The man handed him an orange colored paper with handwritten lines. He smiled warmly at the beautiful handwriting. But as he read the words, his smile started to fade, replaced by guilt. The paper contained a quote. His mind grasped it before his lips could react.
A good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others.
For some reason, he didn't bother to read the name of a person who said these words. His mind was preoccupied. Daniel's doubts, which had circled his mind before the encounter with the young man, returned. He asked himself once again,
Am I a good teacher? A teacher should never show partiality. I need to be impartial to all my students. Every small heart inside my classroom is filled with purity that needs to be nurtured. Every child in my class has a dream that's beginning to glow. This is the time for me to make it shine even brighter.
He remembered his teacher who had patted him on the shoulder, acknowledging his dream of becoming a teacher. His teacher's support had brought out the teacher in him. But after becoming a teacher, had he lived up to the expectations of that younger self who aspired to inspire? Asked his mind. The journey from his home to school seemed longer than usual today. It felt as if someone was deliberately extending the path every time he traveled it. A heavy weight pressed upon him. He couldn't drive any longer and parked his car near the shadow of a tree. He noticed a small grocery shop nearby and opened the car window, allowing the breeze to touch his soul, which felt burdened by failure. After a while, a strong thought emerged, pushing aside all other thoughts and making a place for itself. His mind whispered to him.
Let the teacher inside take control.
Daniel saw hope rising within him, even as his doubtful thoughts attempted to wrestle this newfound conviction. But Daniel shouted inwardly.
I can face any consequences. I cannot forget the teacher inside me. who dreamed of inspiring the hearts of children with the lamp of knowledge and courage for eternity.
He started to drive his car again, and now the journey seemed calmer, although the weight in his heart had not entirely dissipated. He parked his car at the school and walked to his classroom. All the students in the class were eager to hear about the speech competition. He glanced at Alina. Her eyes were losing their innocence, replaced by pride and unhealthy, egoistic behavior. He felt responsible for neglecting this behavior in her, thinking that as the principal's daughter, she should not be offended. He had forgotten the teacher within himself. With a heavy heart, he placed his books on the table and retrieved a list he had made the other day. Looking at it, he realized he had written only Alina's name. He crumpled up the paper and tossed it into the trash can. Taking a fresh sheet of paper, he asked his students who were interested in participating in speech competition to write down their names. Ruby encouraged Meera once again to give it a try. But Meera was lost in thoughts about her grandmother's story and the boy who got the golden ticket. Daniel gazed at Meera and could see the darkness creeping into her mind. For some reason, today he could see through his students in the class. He asked if anyone other than Alina was interested, but none had the courage to step forward. Daniel felt a deep sadness, realizing that he had not allowed any other student the chance to spread their wings. He put down the paper and cleared his throat, saying,
Even if you are scared of public speaking, if you wish to try, as a teacher, I need to give you a chance.
The word chance caught Mira's attention, and her eyes began to sparkle once more. To Daniel's surprise, other than Mira, two other students who weren't typically interested in studies stood up from their seats. He couldn't help but smile warmly at them, and they returned the smile with a look of confusion, perhaps never having been given a chance like this before. Daniel took down their names, and Alina couldn't hold back her questions. Why did you even write their names? One is Miss Silence, and the other two aren't even good with their grades. What's the need for you to do this? Should I inform my father? Daniel could clearly see the consequences of letting the teacher inside him die. He cleared his throat, and his expression grew serious, which frightened Alina. Finally, he said,
You should not inform your dad, but the honorable principal of the school.
Alina was confused, but not Daniel. He informed the class that from today, anyone trying to bully others would be strictly punished, emphasizing that everyone inside the classroom is equal, no matter who their father is. He looked at Alina, whose face turned red. Finally, Daniel had learned that a good teacher need to be both strict and friendly. He announced that in 2 days there would be a small speech competition inside the classroom. Those who had given their names for the main competition needed to prepare a short speech, and the topics would be posted on the notice board later that afternoon. Mira couldn't resist exclaiming, "My golden ticket!" Daniel walked out of the classroom with a light heart, feeling a newfound energy filling him. He smiled at the rebirth of a teacher inside him. He remembered his daughter and her final question that had hit him like a bullet from an AK 47, changing his life within hours. He smiled, realizing that life is indeed a great teacher and has unique methods for each and every one of us. He couldn't help but wonder how life had made his daughter play her role so efficiently, as she is always mischievous. He just smiled at the thought. The end. So, friends, I really hope you enjoy this story a lot, where Meera and Daniel both got golden ticket from life in two different ways, but still it is interconnected. So, likewise, life always has a way to deal with each and every one of us. No matter where we are or what we are doing, life has a method to bring us back to right track as well as to give us all precious chances. So, don't allow any of discouraging thoughts or ideas of others to haunt your soul. Just cheer yourself up and feel the beauty of life. By telling you all this, your moon friend is vanishing with a very last question to you guys. Friends,